Firestorm Citadel. Everybody knows it, everybody grinds it. Whilst there's definitely definitive guides on how to best run Firestorm Citadel, everyone probably has their own slight variants on how to play it or grind it, myself included. So in this video, I'm going to talk about some of the tips and tricks I end up using for some of my Vana runs. There's really not a whole lot to say when it comes to the first floor. It's mostly the same shenanigans. However, it's a bit important that I beeline to the party button, as the wheel that rolls down towards the spawn area aren't randomized. And because I've done so many Vana runs, I figured out a path that best works for me. The only other thing arguably worth mentioning is the area that has the 4 buttons. There's 8 slag zombies, 4 of which will likely die to the wheels, the 2 in the middle that can easily be taken care of with a well-placed blitz needle charge after blowing up the blast block, and the 2 on the sides, both as well, can be swiftly dealt with a single charge attack. But this time, leave them encased between the crates, as that prevents them from moving, and that allows them to take enough damage to be one shot. And that's really kind of anything worth saying for the first floor. I think most people have their own preferred path for completing the charge court. I personally start in the bottom left, and I proceed up to the top 2 left rooms. Then I move towards the bottom right 2 rooms, and then I skip the puppy room because I don't like the puppy room, even though it's technically faster? I don't know about that personally. And then I complete the other room there. Starting in the bottom left, you can instantly take out the Trojan in the top left corner by pressing the button and running straight towards him and quickly shooting him back. Easier said than done. And the reason why that's the case is because unfortunately this only works for Masquerade users. However, it eliminates both the biggest threat in the room and gives you more access to the room, and if you don't really care about killing the zombies, you can just take the sprite and leave. But I like killing them, so I like dragging the zombies into the corner where I kill the Trojan and just kill them there so that way I don't have to worry about the Grim Totem. What I end up doing for room 2 is immediately going after the blast cubes, so that way I can try and keep Trojan number 2 in the other cubby hole while I take care of Trojan 1. Now granted, this doesn't always work out, and sometimes Trojan number 2 escapes, or I end up taking more damage than necessary. And this will also definitely not work if you go invisible with Masquerade, because then the Trojan number 2 actually loses all aggro interest in you, and so he just starts wandering about. So you gotta be careful to not go invisible, and also you gotta stay within this upper region of the room, so that way you don't potentially risk both the zombies and the Trojan coming out and joining the fight while you take care of Trojan 1. Room 3 doesn't really have anything worth mentioning other than I try to keep the Oilers from getting lit. Room 4 also isn't too different, but I try to bliss charge the Silk Wings while the Trojan is still trapped behind the stone blocks, so that way the Silk Wings don't get in the way or try and heal him. Room 5 isn't that remarkable either, other than I try to clump all the enemies together when possible. And I'll elaborate more on this once we get to floor 3, because there's a whole ass tangent I got about that. When I get to room 6, I don't try to cross halfway through the room so as to not spawn the extra enemies, where I then clean up the monsters on the lower half, and then it allows me to voltage charge this specific spot to hopefully inflict shock on the Trojan, where then I can gun it down with a couple blitz needle attacks. However, in this footage here, as you can see, I was too slow and I wasn't able to capitalize on that. Otherwise, aside from just chucking the water mainly on the right side on the way to the elevator, that's it for this floor. Floor 3 is also pretty unremarkable as well, so I'm going to take the chance to rant about a really bad hot take I have. Alright. You see this? Yeah, it's an electron vortex. Now, I'm not going to say it's bad or it's not useful or anything. It's definitely useful. What I am going to say, though, is that it is not needed if you know what you're doing. Yeah! Floor 3 is the stage where the electron vortex is the most useful, and while that's good and all, you yourself can be the vortex bomb if you know what you're doing. The whole point of the vortex is that its utility to set up a charge attack for all the monsters clustered together. But, like, you could save yourself some time at the cost of some damage and become the vortex yourself and jump out when all the monsters are clustered together. This is especially effective in the final fight for this floor, where you have 5 zombies slightly scattered and you can let them all cluster together for a very easy brandish attack. rinse, and repeat. Now, a counter argument could be is that you take a lot of damage doing so, or you could possibly even trap yourself in with all the zombies. Yeah, there is a possibility of doing that, but at least with the first and final fight, there's a lot of health that could drop, and you could always shield bump them out of the way, or just even attack them if you really need to. Now, I know what I'm showing doesn't look like I'm killing them super fast, but I'm also not running Black Hat or Chaos, so this is my damage output. But that just means it'll work faster for knights with those sets. Alright, rant over. Now, go ahead and write your comments down below, call me an idiot. For the first arena of this floor, I only grab one Grim Totem and I run it back to place in the corner. If done correctly, which is basically Nether. I guess it makes sense for the region we're in, but Nether? Never! The totem gets placed in a really funky manner and gives ever so slightly more room for fighting zombies. Now with phase 2 of the fight, I just take one of the 2 new totems and do the same thing in the other corner since you only really need one side of the arena to fight the zombies. And I mean, I guess it does save time. I mean, I don't know about you. I also try to kill the last zombie near the top of the gate, where then I can hopefully get at least one easy kill in the Trojans for phase 3. Granted, it doesn't always work out, but, you know, it's the potential that matters. Something else a player could do is build themselves a wall with the 3 totems to prevent Trojans from accessing the lower half of the arena, or vice versa. But that's a lot of time for mediocre results, but it's arguably better for newer players. The final arena is a mess. I first start with taking care of the Red Rovers, immediately allowing me to fight the Trojan on the bottom section. Thus, it keeps his corpse there and out of the way. I say that, but it doesn't matter. I can instantly break his corpse with a quick needle charge on accident. Then phase 2 is a pure zombie wave, where I try to kill the last zombie on the top section, just like last time, allowing me an easy kill on phase 3's single Trojan, assuming I don't somehow screw that up. Repeat the previous step for a hopefully easy kill on at least one of the 2 Trojans for phase 4. Otherwise, it's just a good and final fight for floor 4. It's just Vanna. Just fight Vanna as you usually do. However, I will say this. For phase 3 and 5, once he starts macing the ground, do your best to keep the Shadowfire on the northern half of the arena. Because the Spiral Knights is what I'm going to call rhombic camera angle, if you're in the upper half of the arena, you won't be able to easily see what's south of you, be it Vanna, his minions, or most crucially, the Shadowfire. Getting trapped because of the camera angle is not a fun experience, so keeping the Shadowfire in the upper half allows you to more readily see and plan where you can maneuver through, and it makes a fight a lot easier. Also, keeping the Shadowfire on the upper half of the arena allows for a cleaner playing field in the lower half. Thankfully, he does eventually stop spawning Shadowfire after a certain point, meaning once you've managed to get enough Shadowfire in the upper half of the arena, you won't have to worry about any more, and you'll just have to deal with his minions and all the macing. So that's about all I have to share for my own personal tips and tricks for Firestorm Citadel. Honestly though, there are more minor things I could have talked about that I'm not going to talk about, like throw the water at the Shadowfire like this to clear access to both the party button and the button that gives access to 3 red prize boxes at the end of the level. Something like that seems a bit self-evident and not really necessary to really talk about. Otherwise, I may have, well, just done a live commentary video about the topic. Though that may have been easier to edit in hindsight. This outro is being recorded after everything else has been edited, so everything is being partially written to pad out the video at the time of the video, excuse me. Either way, if there's something you'd like to say about tips and tricks relating to Firestorm Citadel, be it towards anything I've talked about in this video, or any of your other personal tips you may have for Firestorm Citadel, feel free to leave a comment down below. I do my best to read and respond to each and every comment. But with that, I'd like to bid you guys farewell. Bye-bye.